fellow booktubers, my name is Lauren, you're watching Dreams Books Courage, and today I'm going to be doing my July wrap-up. July was quite a slow reading month for me, and I'm not sure why, but most of my books were 4-star books instead of 5-star, so I think that kind of contributed to it. It's not that the material that I read was necessarily bad, I just felt like I was going into a reading slump, but I kept reading anyways, and so I just didn't really like the books as much as I could have. So I only completed a total of 5 books, which is better than most people in the world. But still, it was slow for me. Overall, I did enjoy the books that I read, and so let's go ahead and start talking about them. So the first book that I read in the month of July was The Adventures of Tom Sawyer by Mark Twain. And before I read this book, I had already read The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, and I knew that that book had more quality than Tom Sawyer does, but I still really enjoyed this book. I was very pleasantly surprised with how much I liked it. Like most people, I had already known some of the stories within it. Like the whitewashing a Finn story, I feel like that's such a classic that you kind of have to read during elementary school. This is an episodic novel, which means that there are a bunch of different kind of episodes within it. So obviously from the title, there are a lot of adventures that Tom Sawyer goes on, but they are all kind of separated in some ways. Like each chapter is kind of like its own adventure, and then there's like one overlying adventure throughout. I really enjoyed reading this book and learning more about Tom Sawyer, and also seeing a bit more of Huck Finn's background. It's kind of cute and funny to see all of the childlike superstitions that are within this book, and those definitely made for quite a few funny moments. The adventures were definitely entertaining, but I feel like the boys never really got in trouble whenever they came back. Like one time they ran away for a few days, and then whenever they came back, they didn't really get in trouble at all. Maybe that's just the way of this time period, but I just thought that to be kind of odd. It just seemed like there were a lot of quick resolutions throughout this book, but that's understandable since this is a middle grade type of book. I really do enjoy Mark Twain's writing style. This is definitely a timeless story that I think that everyone should read. Some parts of this book were kind of slow to me, but overall the adventures were very entertaining, and I ended up giving this book 4 out of 5 stars. After finishing that book, I decided to finally pick up Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children by Ransom Riggs, and I was kind of disappointed in this book. This book wasn't bad by any means, but there was just so much hype built around it that I thought it would be just this amazing story, and it just kind of fell flat on that part for me. Also, I feel like you need to be in a particular mood to get into this story, and I just wasn't really in that mood, but I still made myself read it anyways. There are a lot of very interesting characters, and I just really love how Ransom Riggs brought this world to life. It's unlike anything I've ever read, and I think it's very interesting. But for about the first 150 pages of this book, which is probably about half of this book, I was just kind of bored, and the story felt very slow moving. And I understand that you have to world build within stories, especially the first of a trilogy, but I just felt like it was just too much, and there just really wasn't enough going on. This series to me is like a mixture of Edgar Allan Poe and then the series of Unfortunate Events, and I love both of those, so I really thought that I would just absolutely love this, but I just felt like I couldn't really get into the story as much as I wanted to. I enjoyed so many parts of this novel, like the writing style and the plot, but I had to take away a star just because I felt like I wasn't really into this. Hopefully I'll be able to reread this trilogy at some point because I felt like I could really get into this, but I just wasn't really in the mood for it. So I ended up giving this book 4 out of 5 stars. Of course, the next book I read after that was Hollow City, also by Ransom Riggs. And this story to me was definitely better than the first novel. Although I felt like some parts were still slow moving, this definitely was more action-packed than the first one. There's kind of a time travel aspect throughout these books that you don't really expect going into them, and I think that that was a very cool aspect of them. And so for a long time throughout both of these novels, I didn't really understand exactly how the time travel worked, but I think that by the end of this book, I kind of did. All of these characters have a very unique backstory that you learn more about within this book, and the setting is really cool as well, being within the London area within the 1940s, which was when World War II was happening. I'm not really saying much about what the actual story is about because I feel like it's way better to go into these books without expecting anything, and even if you know like bits and pieces of what happens within these, you still really kind of go into them without knowing. Because I knew a little bit going into it, but then it was completely unlike what I thought it'd be. And if you know things about the story before going into this book, then you're kind of expecting them to happen, and really, as I said before, nothing really happens within the series for about 150 pages. In some ways, I still feel like the story isn't fast-paced enough for me, which is kind of odd, but I still find it really interesting, and I gave this book, again, 4 out of 5 stars. I would recommend that you guys pick out this series and try it for yourself, especially if you're into Edgar Allan Poe, or Lemony Snicket. The fourth book that I read in the month of July was Paper Towns by John Green, and I read this in anticipation of Paper Towns coming out this month. I've read this book before, so this was my second time reading it. The first time was about 2 years ago, so I definitely forgot quite a few things within this. And this time I decided to read this book on audiobook since I was having a tough time throughout the month of reading. And I would definitely recommend that you guys try to read books on audiobook format if you guys are kind of feeling like you're getting in a reading slump. It definitely helped me get through this book way faster than I would have if I just read it on my own, and it also allowed me to get other things done as well. As you guys know, I love John Green, and one of the things that I love most about his writing is that he can really relate to me, and I feel like that's how a lot of people feel, especially if they're teenagers. And I feel like he depicts teenagers perfectly within this book because pretty much everyone is selfish in their own ways, but it's definitely understandable because they are, of course, teenagers. And one aspect that I really love about this book is that there are a bunch of references to Leaves of Grass by Walt Whitman. I've never actually read the poem, but I feel like I really want to every time I read this book. This book is a mixture of like a contemporary mixed with a mystery, mixed with a road trip. And so I really love all of these aspects throughout this book, and I feel like the way John Green does them is so good. And a lot of people dislike this book, and I feel like a lot of the reason is because they dislike the characters, because they are selfish. But I feel like you have to remember that for one, they are teenagers, and two, you don't have to like the characters to like the story. I feel like there is a very deep message within this book, and I feel like you really have to get past dislikable characters in order to really enjoy it. The Great Gatsby is kind of the same way as this one is, so if you like The Great Gatsby, I feel like you would like this one as well. This book is just so relatable to me because I just graduated from high school, and this book takes place within these teenagers' lives in the last few months before they graduate, and so I definitely felt all the feelings that they did. They just wanted to get out of the place, and I definitely understand that feeling. If you guys like the John Green quotes that you see on like Tumblr or Pinterest, you should definitely check out this book because this is where the most quotes come from. I would definitely say that this is the most quotable John Green book, and it is my second favorite of his. The first time I read this book, for some reason I gave this 4 stars, but this time I definitely gave it 5. This book was just so relatable to me, and I feel like a lot of you guys could relate to this story as well, especially if you are in high school. And also, I did a book to movie review on the Paper Towns movie, so if you want to check that out, I'll leave a link to it down below. And the final book that I read in the month of July was The Clone Army Attacketh, which is the 5th book in the William Shakespeare Star Wars series by Ian Doescher. And I was really worried about whether or not I would like this book since this movie is my least favorite. But Ian Doescher did amazing things with this book and with the words. If you go into these books, I would definitely suggest that you read the afterword before you actually read the story, because I feel like it just adds so much to the story and you guys would enjoy it even more if you read it first. Ian Doescher definitely made this book his own, and I really enjoyed that. He added some dialogue where he felt it necessary, and he also deleted some of the scenes that happened in the movie that don't necessarily need to happen within a play format. In the earlier books, he always had every single scene, and that can get kind of monotonous and boring. So I'm really glad that this had just very important parts that needed to be in here. Again, within the movie, I feel like there's not really a plot, it's just a bunch of world building within the movie. But Ian Doescher definitely made this his own, and he used a lot of Shakespearean devices that I really enjoyed, so I ended up giving this book 4 out of 5 stars. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I really hope that you guys enjoyed it. I feel kind of bad that I didn't read as much this month, but I felt like it was better to just kind of let the reading slump happen instead of just forcing myself to read. I am very happy with the books that I did complete, and if you guys have read any of these books, I would love to know your thoughts on them down below, as well as how many books you managed to complete in the month of July. Now I'm gonna go get back to reading.